I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos that I have described on a number of podcasts that I went from being keto to trying a honey diet, famed by Anabology, and I had a pretty rough time in 2024. And could I explain that experience? Now, the context of the journey that I've been on, there's a lot that probably needs to go into a video. I've tried to make this video before, and I found myself talking for 20 minutes without even getting to the honey diet period of my life. So I'm going to just focus this one on the honey diet. And for context, I was some form of PSMFing, extremely low carb, ketogenic for years up until the honey diet and my experience with it. And there are two pieces of context that probably need to be shown on screen, and I'll do that in a sec. One will be my TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. That's what I track, or that's what I try and work out, which is your daily morning weigh-in against your total caloric intake. No matter how much exercise you do, should come out in the wash. Really, are you gaining weight on that amount of food, or are you losing weight on that amount of food? And I think that if more people knew that actual number, we would be in a much healthier place. Most people's metabolisms are aggressively suppressed. Mine moves around in the low 2000s, sometimes down in the 1900s. As a 170-pound male with 140 pounds of muscle, it should be at least in the 3000s. And if it's not, like, if you're not in the 3000s, like, you have to really be considering what's going on in your life. How much damage have you done? Which is one of my main insights from the honey diet. So let's dive in, and I'll tell you all about my experience. So let's start here real quick. I started the honey diet the week of April 15th, 2024. And up until that point, I got to tell you, for about at least 8 years before that, I was deadly afraid of sugar. I hadn't had a full sugar Dr. Pepper, Coke, or anything on purpose for almost a decade at that point. I had been, you might see in here, this starts in the beginning of 2024, but before that, I did 10 weeks of protein sparing modified fast. Then I did 4 or 5 weeks of like a keto gains protocol. And then this one is me doing 1,500 calories a day, mostly protein and an enormous amount of exercise and not losing any weight. Then I went through the steak and butter gals priming, feasting protocol, and that was a number of weeks here. That really didn't get me anywhere either. Then I did a week of bulking on like a lean gainsy approach. Then I moved to a lean gains cut approach for a number of weeks, which is where 50% of your calories are coming from protein and that you're in a small deficit. I did a week of PSMF again, being an idiot, and then here. So a couple of things to note. Honey diet is this. Anabology's work is the work. I'll make sure I link it in this video. The honey diet is from wake up until about 2 p.m. You can eat all of the sugar you want. You want to stay away from starch. You want to have no fat. You want to have no protein. You need sugar. You need a glucose and a fructose molecule stuck together. You cannot just have pure glucose. And the theory is that then you have a outsized FGF21 response, and that's also with the protein restriction, and then you basically burn off excess energy and fat, and you can basically you create a caloric deficit by speeding up your metabolism every day beyond where it is, as opposed to restricting calories, which on the whole, no matter what your opinion is of stress hormones, is a fundamentally much better way of thinking about trying to lose weight than just restricting. Because what you'll see is that my TDEE around this time is still 2000 and should be in 3300 range. It's like seriously suppressed. You can so much damage your metabolism, which I have done and I'm trying to sort out now. Now with the honey diet, I had a couple funny things. One, I had no sugar basically for a decade before I did this. Two, my in-laws came to stay with us this week, so I didn't have that much control over my dinner. I was eating rice, I was eating vegetables, I was eating some fatty foods, fatty fish and stuff in the evenings, and that's one part of it. And two, because I look at the scale every single day, I have seen huge swings in weight. I mean, you can see some pretty large swings in weight in here. I see huge swings in weight. I'm used to it. I was expecting to just immediately see like massive swings in weight. And I think there's two parts to that. One is, two parts that are wrong. One is I hadn't had any context of where I was coming from and the history of dietary suppression. And two, if your metabolism is really low, and FGF21 or whatever the mechanisms are, can raise your metabolism, let's say, by 10%, right? If you're at 3,000 calories or at 3,500 calories, that's a lot more than when you're at 2,000, right? And trying to bring up FGF21 at that point. So I think my expectations for what it was supposed to do were a bit insane. when I went honey diet, the things I focused on eating were maple syrup, honey, which I would freeze and turn it into like a gooey gummy, dates, and a lot of dried fruit. In hindsight, dried fruit bad, dates bad, honey bad. I think that's all just way too dense for a person to start this. I think you need wet fruit fundamentally. Now, there are a couple, if you add the other context in here, that up until this point, right, decade no of sugar and effectively no carbohydrates, my fasting insulin was 2 before I started this. That's not necessarily making me insulin sensitive. That means that my insulin was suppressed. My body wasn't producing insulin because it didn't need it. I was so ketogenic, 1. Hey, so I want to talk to you about Patchwork. At Patchwork, we work with people to help them achieve metabolic excellence. Fundamentally, that's really taking a look at where you are and your diet history and how you're feeling, your symptoms, that kind of stuff. And then digging down into the root causes of what is blocking your metabolism such that you are gaining weight or you are resistant to gaining weight, to losing weight, or you are consistently regaining any weight that you've lost, right? Calorie counting doesn't work, fasting doesn't work, carnivore doesn't work anymore. Why? We do that a number of ways. We do it through genetic testing, we do it through organic acids testing, but newly released, we also do that through some AI coaching. So I want to give you a quick preview of our AI metabolic coach. If you head to coach.patchworkfood.com, this is available right now, live, free to use. Have at it. I think everybody that's used it has given us feedback that they have discovered some pretty insightful stuff. And you don't have to give it full answers because it will understand what's going on. So I just tag my answers there together with little hyphens. It's then going to ask me, right, what's your, do I want to do a deep dive or go quick? Let's go deep dive. It's going to ask me what my TDEE is. We just looked on screens. We think it's about 2150. I think I'm being a bit aggressive, but 2150. What's it going to tell me? Lean body mass, I'm at 20%. Okay, so based on 20%, how much I'm doing there. Do I do any exercise? This is going to flag if I'm in a low energy availability state, which I definitely am. I've suppressed my metabolism so aggressively, and I think most people don't realize that you actually shouldn't just be able to infinitely restrict calories. The average man should be eating well over 3,000 calories a day. So I'll just do one last answer here. I do weights, the 3x a week plus 8 hours of cycling. So it's guessing there that I'm pulling, my metabolism is pulling out about 15.36 calories per pound of lean body mass, and that would put me in a low energy availability state. I will flag here, people are always like, oh, your metabolism's low, you need to gain muscle. If I gain muscle, that won't change the 15 calories per pound number, because that's changing the pound number and the calories number. Fundamentally, right, as an actual person, you should be able to pull more energy out of your body than I currently am. I'll pause right there, but if you get a chance, definitely take a look. I'm sure it will help a lot of people out. 2, you actually are fundamentally glucose intolerant, right? You touch sugar, and because you don't have a proper insulin response, your blood sugar just goes through the roof and you get completely lost. Now, I actually was wearing an Abbott Lingo CGM during this time. I need to dig out the old tweets and show them on screen. My blood sugar was absolutely fucking crazy. So I would eat sugar, I would eat honey, I would eat dates, and my blood sugar, I'm trying to think of the numbers, my blood sugar was like going up into the 200s. It just didn't know what to do. It would go up and I just didn't have the insulin response to put it back down. And that was wild, right? You actually can have so much energy that you can't think. I basically would find that I felt like I'd have like a car hitting a wall in my head where I like could not think. It wasn't an elevated amount of energy. It was just like cranking up to the point where nothing worked. And the other part of that is the hypoglycemic reaction on the other side. So my blood sugar would then crash to, I think it was getting pretty close to like the 40s a couple of times. I need to dig out the numbers. But the hypoglycemic episodes were absolutely absurd. I remember eating a bunch of honey and dates. I drove my car 5 blocks. I went to a grocery store and a retail store, and I got back on the road to come back. And as I'm driving, it was literally like someone was turning the sun on and off. Like I just had like black and white like flickers in my eyes trying to see the road. My hands started shaking. My stomach felt weird. I had sweat dripping down my face. And I remember pulling over and thinking, I can't believe I did this to myself. This is so stupid. Sugar is the absolute worst. I'm an idiot. My daughter was born on February 20th of 2024. So she was only like a month and a half old. And I was just thinking, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done to myself. But I stuck with it. And I was texting him every day, and he said, hey, you have to stick with it. You don't have to stick with it. He was saying, why don't you stick with it? Over a couple of days, you'll get better with the glucose tolerance, and you will likely see some benefits. And I look at that, and I got to say, that week of the honey diet, I did lose. I mean, 0.68 pounds is not a tiny amount of weight. And I had started eating sugar, which is insane, right? Like, surely my glycogen stores should have gone through the roof. That's one. And then the second week, I did gain a bit of weight there. So the second week was 0.26, actually. That's pretty good. 0.26. I lost a little bit more weight. Now, one of those was funny. The Monday I had a meeting in Sacramento. I live in Denver. I had a meeting in Sacramento. I flew out in the morning thinking I would just fast for the day and like not have an issue, get to the airport and you're like starving. I flew out in the morning and then flew back in the evening. I got there a couple hours early because you have to run on the flight schedule. So I went to the store, I bought dates, dried fruit, honey, and I sat on the steps of my client office and just like pounded sugar. Then I had my meeting, went back to the airport, Sacramento airport. I had like 2 hours to my flight. And it was kind of funny and liberating to be like, I don't have to restrict food anymore. I can just eat all the sugar I want. Like I can do whatever I want. And so the only real sugar that I wanted to eat that I found in the airport was dried apples. And I ate through probably 2,000 or 3,000 calories of dried apples that afternoon waiting for my flight. I don't know if you can guess where this is going to go. Having basically eaten no sugar, and then also I'd been so meat-based keto and low carb, no real fermentable fiber up until that point. My body didn't know what to do with that. Oh, I think you just lost me. Yeah. My body didn't know what to do with that fiber. So I get on the flight, an hour into the flight, my stomach really starts to hurt. It feels like I'm going to explode, but also feels like someone is physically stabbing me. And I will say, long story short, it was one of the most painful 24-hour episodes of my life, dealing with the massive bloat and stomach pains. And I'm trying to think of when that would have been, because there was definitely a weight gain day afterwards. So maybe I went to Sacramento there. That makes sense. Or maybe it was here. Maybe one of those two. I can't remember. But it was absurd. It was completely absurd. And then I think on the weekends, I couldn't really do the honey diet because I was with family. But I will say, here's where the kicker was for me. I didn't see many massive weight losses you can see through these weeks. I kept doing it, some form of fruit till noon or fruit and honey until the evening if I could, maybe with a tiny amount of veggies, until this week here. So 133. When I started, I was 1388. So I lost a bit of a pound over this period of time. However, during this time, I took a road trip to Texas. My wife is an artist and does an art show in Dallas that was phenomenal for her. Then I came back from that and I was still high, but I think that was inflammation based. Then I spent a week in Long Beach with my family, Long Beach Island. I went to a wedding as well in Philly. And so when I travel, right, I don't take my scales. You're not in control of the food you cook. All of a sudden, all of the controls are gone. And every time I travel, with my metabolism being so suppressed, I basically know that I'm going to gain an ungodly amount of weight. It's so bad at Christmas and Thanksgiving. I'm so tired of doing it, and I'm trying to heal my metabolism and fix that. The remarkable thing here was, went away, Long Beach, then Long Beach Island, Texas. We had a wedding in Philly, and then my wife and I spent a week at OBX, so Outer Banks, North Carolina, with my kids. And I'd say every dinner we would have, I was restricting food a little bit. I was eating a lot of fruit in the mornings and the lunchtime, and that's when I was doing some pretty significant cycling training. I guess all this journey I was doing some pretty significant cycling training. We would have dinner every night. We were having creamy, fishy, seafoody foods, and I was shocked that I came back effectively lighter than when I come back from Texas, which is what this weights are, effectively the same weight. That to me was quite a big light bulb moment that the honey diet or fruit till noon or whatever sugar diet could at least be used with some relevance to maintain a weight as opposed to gain or go down a weight. I'll say I tried to do that on a cruise ship later on in the year, and that didn't work out so well for me. But that was my main thing. Then I came back and I decided I was going to try and go on a high potassium brine venture experiment based on slime mold, time molds work. And funnily enough, something then happened. So I ride this bike race every year called the Triple Bypass. I trained for it for about 12 weeks. It's 120 miles. You gain 12,000 feet of elevation during the race. You start at 8,000 feet of elevation, and you go over 3 mountain passes and end at 10,000 feet elevation, which is 2 miles above sea level. So there's like no oxygen. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've done it 4 years. I'm doing it. I think this will be my final year for a while. But randomly, yeah, I started gaining weight basically before the triple. Couldn't explain what was going on. I just chalked that up to stress, basically. And I don't weigh that much now. I wish I weighed that much now going into my next triple race. But I put on about 10 pounds of muscle. The thing that, I gained that weight and it was pretty stressful. And then the week after, I was like, okay, I need to get back down to 155 pounds. I'm shredded at 155. I love 155. I want to get to 155. And thought I would do what's called the Daisy Cutter, popularized by a guy called Joel Green. It's basically protein sparing modified fast with a bunch of marketing, and actually doesn't work as well as a protein sparing modified fast. I think the marketing is dishonest around the protocol, and I've never seen anybody have any success on it. So I don't know why I thought I'd hack the secret to life. But it is interesting looking back that maybe I should have stayed on fruit till noon and these things. I think dried fruit is bad doesn't work for me. I ate a lot of dates, ate a lot of mangoes, which really messed up the whole thing. And my teeth did start hurting quite a bit. I was brushing with nano hypoxy apatite toothpaste, but my teeth did really, really hurt. They got really sensitive. And that was my experience. I mean, my high level things were like, in hindsight, knowing what I know about the liver and how choline's pretty critical. My gene mutations, which I discovered through my work with Patchwork, mean that my choline requirement, without being obsessive, without doing high sugar or a high saturated fat diet, my choline requirement is about 9 eggs a day. It's 120 milligrams a day. I wasn't having anywhere near that, so I can see how this would go wrong. And the additional thing there then is, the dried fruit. I think we now know mangoes and dates don't work so well. I should have stayed with wet fruit and just had wet fruit kind of all day, and maybe brushed my teeth a couple more times. It's making me think maybe I should try again. Although I just didn't feel that good. I will say working out was amazing. It was the first time in my entire cycling career where I've actually properly fueled with sugar and seen great results. There were a couple of funny training rides in here where I would eat an entire watermelon and then I'd go and ride 70 miles on my bike for training. And I had horrific bloating and pain. So watermelons also, I think, one you probably should skip. But that was my general experience. I've then messed around with a whole bunch of protocols since then, still experimenting, still learning. I think I discovered I have a pretty big vitamin A sensitivity, but I think, again, that's mainly a choline deficiency issue. And I did PSMF again at the beginning of this year, which I will now probably never do again. I think no one should do it. It is really stupid, especially if you have a suppressed metabolism. It is really stupid. And my metabolism today is now at like 2150. I think if I show on screen, it's flatlined this week, which is really frustrating. And I'm trying to get it going up. And I'm overloading it to try and get it going up. And I'm gaining weight. I've gained 15 pounds in the last 3 months, which is not perfectly ideal when I'm doing a bike race in 6 weeks. But life is life. At some point, you have to care more about your health and the long-term stuff than the other things. So that's where we're at. Anyway, that was my honey diet experience. Let me know in the comments what you think and if I'm an idiot. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell notification. And also, I'll tell you a bit about Patchwork. Hey, so I want to talk to you about Patchwork. At Patchwork, we work with people to help them achieve metabolic excellence. Fundamentally, that's really taking a look at where you are and your diet history and how you're feeling, your symptoms, that kind of stuff. And then digging down into the root causes of what is blocking your metabolism such that you are gaining weight or you are resistant to gaining weight, to losing weight, or you are consistently regaining any weight that you've lost, right? Calorie counting doesn't work, fasting doesn't work, carnivore doesn't work anymore. Why? We do that a number of ways. We do it through genetic testing, we do it through organic acids testing, but newly released, we also do that through some AI coaching. So I want to give you a quick preview of our AI metabolic coach. If you head to coach.patchworkfood.com, this is available right now, live, free to use. Have at it. I think everybody that's used it has given us feedback that they have discovered some pretty insightful stuff. And you don't have to give it full answers because it will understand what's going on. So I just tag my answers there together with little hyphens. It's then going to ask me, right, what's your, do I want to do a deep dive or go quick? Let's go deep dive. It's going to ask me what my TDEE is. We just looked on screens. We think it's about 2150. I think I'm being a bit aggressive, but 2150. What's it going to tell me? Lean body mass, I'm at 20%. Okay, so based on 20%, how much I'm doing there. Do I do any exercise? This is going to flag if I'm in a low energy availability state, which I definitely am. I've suppressed my metabolism so aggressively, and I think most people don't realize that you actually shouldn't just be able to infinitely restrict calories. The average man should be eating well over 3,000 calories a day. So I'll just do one last answer here. I do weights, the 3x a week plus 8 hours of cycling. So it's guessing there that I'm pulling, my metabolism is pulling out about 15.36 calories per pound of lean body mass, and that would put me in a low energy availability state. I will flag here, people are always like, oh, your metabolism's low, you need to gain muscle. If I gain muscle, that won't change the 15 calories per pound number, because that's changing the pound number and the calories number. Fundamentally, right, as an actual person, you should be able to pull more energy out of your body than I currently am. I'll pause right there, but if you get a chance, definitely take a look. I'm sure it will help a lot of people out.